Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints?
Shaken, not stirred. Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my podcast listening friend, Frank. How are you today, Frank?
I'm doing wonderful, my friend. How are you?
Good. I'm doing very good. Today is not Beer with Geeks. It is, in fact, Bailey's and Geeks.
Irish coffee with geeks.
Irish coffee with Geeks. Yeah, I picked up this Bailey with espresso, and I said it more offhandedly, casually. I bought beer too for this.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah,
but we decided we were feeling, it's a cold day here in Massachusetts, cold, and we figured that something to warm us up would be
This is really
nice
good.
treat.
This is
It's
really
really
good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
this
really good.
Bailey's espresso is really.
it is. And what kind of coffee did you?
This is dark roast. It's a French dark roast, and
Okay.
I can't remember the brand.
That's fine. It's very good. And then with the espresso Bailey's, it's extra.
It's actually really. I'm really satisfied.
Yeah, me too.
With that decision.
Yeah. It's keeping me warm, and it tastes good too. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Do you? So like it's winter. It's like
It's winter outside.
yeah. Look out the window, man.
Oh, look at all the snow.
Yeah. It's New England.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's winter, and I spend a lot of more time indoors when it's winter, which means things like sipping warm drinks around a fire and that kind of thing. And something that I've been doing a lot more of recently. I've been listening to a lot more podcasts.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot. I subscribe to somewhere in the ballpark of 70 podcasts.
You 70 podcasts? You're obsessed, sir. You're obsessed.
I pretty much, whenever I'm not like talking to someone, I've got earbuds in and I'm listening to a podcast. Pretty much.
God, you need a moment of silence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
I listen to a
goodness
ton.
gracious.
I listen to a ton, but I know you listen to a lot too.
I do. I don't listen to 70
Most
for
people-
sure.
Most sane people do not. So, but yeah, I do listen to quite a few, and a lot of them tend to be on the the geekier side of the
Yeah, I listen to 12.
12.
It was a 12 podcast.
So,
it's some
okay.
of them I don't even subscribe to because I don't want to listen to every episode.
Fair enough. Okay, no, I
Yeah.
will say, like, some of the podcasts I'm subscribed to, or some of them I'm not subscribed to, but they're in my player because
Yeah.
I don't listen
Yeah,
to every
yeah.
episode. And some of them, like, they'll put out an episode a week, and maybe they're interview podcasts, right? And I only listen when they're interviewing somebody who I know,
Right,
or
Right.
So, but there are a bunch. Do you have a favorite style of podcast? First of all, like, is there something that?
Yes, I like podcasts from overseas.
This is true about you.
I listen to a lot of shows that are not from America.
In particular, British ones you listen to.
Yeah, I have 2 British podcasts and 1 Australian podcast.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
I might have one. No, okay, never mind. Yeah, it's those 3.
Name them.
I listen to the Empire Film Podcast, which
one.
is Empire Magazine's podcast every week.
There's an example. I listen to that one too, but only when it's like when they're talking about a movie or talking to someone. From,
and I listen to every single episode. I don't care
Yeah.
who they're talking to.
Yeah.
Because I love movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you listen to 70 of them, you can't really.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, when you only listen to 12, you get to listen to all of them. So,
All right, touche.
Yep. And the other one I listen to, There's No Such Thing as a Fish.
You turned me on to that one. in a
Yeah,
big way.
which is I turned a lot of people onto this one.
Yeah,
it's
it's
really good. It is for a certain kind of person.
That is true.
It is by the QI Elves. QI is a show in Britain. It used to be hosted by Stephen Fry.
That's right, until recently.
It is no longer, just a couple months ago. And it's kind of a talk show where everyone on the show gathers and they talk about weird and kooky things that were discovered and blah blah blah. It's a lot of fun, but the researchers of the show do their own podcast every week of the weird things that they have discovered in the midst of their research. And they actually go out all over England, or all over the UK, I should even say, and they do different shows at different venues. And it's a lot of them are in the offices, and they put them out every Friday. But this one, but a lot of times they go out. They're really funny. There's 4 of them.
Oh yeah, and they're really smart.
The people are really smart. They're real funny. The facts are always interesting. They're always a hoot. Good. I find them good, like, hey, I found this out, and people, like, there's a good conversation about something that can happen because of it, and they are not afraid to discover or say pretty much anything that they discovered. It's really, I want to say explicit, but it can be explicit.
Yeah, they try to keep it, somewhat.
It's definitely rated R, but it's one of those R's that the whole family can appreciate and laugh at.
Yeah.
Or really rough PG-13. But it's I love it. It's one of my favorites. Comes out every Friday. A lot of my shows that I listen to come out on Fridays, actually, which is tough because I don't really listen on the weekends as much. So
okay, yeah, me too. It's tough. Yeah, so it's sometimes it's hard for me to listen to it too because I need to be on. Whenever I'm busy during the weekends, I'm just hanging out. So like I have to wait till Monday to listen to it, and then all my other shows start coming out too, and it's like they pile up.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So I listened to that one too, and then it was the Weekly Planet. Is that the other one you were going to say?
Weekly Planet is my other one. My Australia. Yeah. The brethren from Australia.
That's right.
They're a very popular show on on the podcast web.
Mm-hmm.
They're just it's just a video, news, comics, movies, TV, sometimes video games.
Because they're the official podcast of comicbookmovie.com.
Right. And they're just really funny.
They're super funny.
They have an excellent chemistry with one another. And I think that's I don't necessarily have to agree with everything that they say.
It's just funny.
I like hearing different points of view from different points of the world because like what they think of something is very dependent on their attitudes raised as an Australian.
Yeah.
Just like listening to things about, no such thing as fish, what they find interesting raised in the UK and whatever else. It's an interesting perspective about a lot of things that I also enjoy.
Sure.
Yes, I quite enjoy that. I know you also listen. I
did
I turn you on to them too?
Did.
Yeah.
You did. All 3 of the shows you just mentioned, you recommended to me.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't really talk much about my Empire Film Podcast, but it is put out every week, and they do a couple different segments. They do their, questions that they answer, and it's something weird like the best scenes filmed, like on a boat, or something like that. And they come up with some really good answers, and they'll pull some films that you might not have even have heard of, and a lot of that you have, and it's real good. And then they movie news, interview with somebody that their movie is just coming out.
Yeah.
It's on the UK schedule, so sometimes
it's a little before ours come out.
Sometimes before, sometimes it's a couple weeks after. Yeah. I just listened to Mark Ruffalo was out soon. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
And because for Spotlight, and that came out in America first. And so it's just stuff like that. It's real, and then it's real good.
Those are the ones I tend to listen to for Empire. It's when they're like, okay, Jurassic World just came out, and we are interviewing Colin Trevorrow, that kind of thing. Right. I really enjoy those the most. That's what I tend to listen to.
Yeah, I'll listen to any of them because some people are they're just fascinating people.
Yeah.
I also really tend to agree with their reviews of movies. That's
okay.
Some people don't put a lot of store on critics. My theory, you have to find the right critic.
The people who have the same kind of viewpoint,
right?
as you.
Exactly. Somebody who writes for the New Yorker might not like Legends of Tomorrow because they don't like superheroes. Mm-hmm. So I got to find a reviewer who likes the stuff that I like, and I take their word seriously.
That was why I always loved Roger Ebert, because I tended to have a similar, and he was like, the people's critic, like everybody loved him.
Yeah.
But so it's easy to say that, but I always found that the things that bothered me, and I think that I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but I mean don't take this as the compliment it sounds like. I think that my view of movies is shaped by Roger Ebert, and I mean that as a compliment to him.
Yeah, that's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not. It is because he was so insightful that I found that I look for the things that he always used to point out. And
No,
and
that's really good,
really
yeah.
important for Empire. I think maybe one of the reasons why I don't listen to it so much is because I don't always agree with their opinions on stuff.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not
Or you
as,
might never want to watch the movie that
Right.
is coming out.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I when they do talk about a movie that I like or that I'm interested in seeing, that's
Yeah.
when I listen. Yeah.
Yeah. So-
and
yeah.
they're always really good. They're always really good interviewers. They're very good interviewers.
Yeah, they're extremely.
And I always love their like spoiler discussions.
Yeah, their
in the-
spoiler specials are really good. There's a great one if you saw the latest Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation.
Yeah.
There's a 2.5 hour.
Oh,
Which is
wow.
really unusual. Normally they're just like they're normally an hour.
Yeah.
And you're in and you're out. But there's a it's not Ralph McQuarrie. It's Ralph McQuarrie is Star Wars.
Yes.
It's
Mission
Chris
Impossible?
McQuarrie.
Oh,
No, Chris
Chris
McQuarrie. There's a 2.5 hour discussion with them because he just kept talking and it was so
Wow.
good that it's this whole big analysis of filmmaking and this. It goes beyond Mission Impossible, and so that's really good to start with. But I became a subscriber to the magazine based off of this podcast.
Oh, is that well? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
yeah.
so enthralled with what they say and do. I was like, I got to read the podcast, and I got to read the magazine. The magazine is just like listening to them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, seems like a fun place to be and mingle. But I've spoken a lot about things. You speak things
It's a
now.
piazza, a place to mix and mingle and be. Okay, so I think it's really hard to start picking these because there's just so many of them for me.
Right.
But
Well, I picked the UK ones.
yeah, so I'm going to go with
or the foreign ones.
yes. Well, I don't listen to a lot of foreign ones. Actually, the ones we just mentioned might be the only ones that are foreign that I listen to. That are like all foreign. I have ones with like people from other countries who are co-hosts.
Right.
But I'm going to start with the geekier stuff. I think we've mentioned before on here that
Story in Star Wars. That's foreign.
Oh, Story in Star Wars. That's true. Yeah.
I knew I
That's
had
a good
one
one too.
more. Yeah.
That one was like topping the charts on iTunes and all the apps
So
a few
good.
months ago, when or like a month ago when The
Yeah,
Force
my
Awakens.
educated nerd heart.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
really well done.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, I love that kind of like intellectual type of taking something geeky and nerdy and making it intellectual.
Yes, I
This
agree.
guy is really, really good at he's like a professor who breaks down like the story elements of our favorite movies of our generation's favorite movies, and he did a whole series called Story in Star Wars where he broke down all 6 Star Wars movies, and then over The Force Awakens as well, into like what are the larger themes and story elements, and what makes a good story, what makes a bad story, what makes a cohesive story, and which of the Star Wars movies stick to that the best. And he did a really, interesting.
His name's Alastair Stevens, by the way.
Alastair Stevens.
Alastair
Yes,
Stevens.
yes.
Yeah, Alastair.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, it's by Harry Potter audiobooks. Alastair. And the website is Storywonk. That's where it comes from.
Storywonk.com,
They have a whole slew of different
Yeah.
podcasts, but the Star Wars one is the one that really took off.
Totally.
Yeah.
It was huge. It became really huge right when.
Well, it was
The Force
appropriate
Awakens came
timing.
out.
Yeah, it
Yes,
was appropriate
exactly.
timing.
But yeah, that really took off. It did a really nice job, and it was kind of unpredictable in that when he got to the prequels, some of the prequels he pointed out there were some thematic things that were stronger than some of the stuff in the original trilogy. Not overall, but there were some things that might surprise you.
It's a very, very formative way of thinking.
Yeah,
was,
I like
was
it a lot.
excellent. But I derailed you. I'm sorry.
No, that's
Continue.
totally fine. That was well worth it. I'm going to talk about tech podcasts for a minute.
Oh, good.
I
Yeah,
listen to
yeah.
a bunch of tech podcasts. I think sort of like the podcast of record when it comes to tech.
I'm ready to download
You ready to go? This Week in Tech is probably it's the definitive sort of weekly tech roundtable with Leo Laporte and formerly of Tech TV, and every week basically he pulls, it's basically Meet the Press but for tech. He pulls all these tech journalists every week and they have a roundtable discussion of the tech headlines from the week. So, okay, what did Apple do this week? What did Microsoft do this week? What Google, Facebook? And it's these great people who write for Mashable and TechCrunch and, all these great publications and great sites, or independent bloggers, independent podcasters. But it's basically the Meet the Press.
Each episode is over 2 hours long.
They are long. They are long, yes. But it's everything that happened in the week. Another one, if you like just Apple news, Mac Break Weekly, also from the same guy, Leo Laporte. Mac Break Weekly is just like, here's all the Apple news from the week, and that's also like 2 hours. But that's if you're just an Apple fan. A really good one if you're an Apple fan, but you're just sort of like a general tech person as well, the Accidental Tech Podcast, another weekly one. And that's hosted by Marco Arment, who's a big developer actually with the Overcast app that I love so much. and John Siracusa, who's another big tech guy, just a very prolific writer. He used to write all the OS 10 reviews for years and years. With these long form reviews of every new version of OS 10, and Casey Liss, who's also a big blogger and a programmer and very, very smart guy. All three of them very smart guys. They're really, really great to listen to. They play off each other very well. But I think maybe my favorite tech podcast nowadays is just the Daily Tech News Show. DTNS, Daily Tech News Show, hosted by Tom Merritt, who's one of my very favorite podcasters ever. And it's literally every day a 30 to 40 minute hit every morning or every afternoon. I listen to it the next morning of just the tech news from that day, which is, it's a big commitment to listen to like a half hour a day. I usually listen like in the morning when I'm getting ready. So I really enjoy that. It's like my daily routine now to listen to that as I'm getting ready to go to work or whatever. But those are some tech podcasts. If you're into that kind of thing, I highly recommend those. I think those are really some of the best that's out there, especially Twit and DCNS. I'm going to say are the most entertaining. ATP, Accidental Tech Podcast, can get a little super nerdy into like, oh, let's talk about programming languages today. So that can be a little much. In terms of like nerd media and nerd culture and stuff, I like Current Geek.
Okay,
Current Geek it's from Tom Merritt, who also does Daily Tech News Show. Tom Merritt and Scott Johnson host this weekly show where they talk about all the geeky news headlines from the week.
Yep.
And they do. They have a couple of guests every week. They'll have a quiz section in the middle, a pop quiz, where they'll just ask, okay, this guest who's on today is a big expert on World of Warcraft, so we're going to ask them really hard questions about World of Warcraft.
Oh, that's cool.
And just to see, test their knowledge of whatever the thing that they claim to be an expert in.
This one's your favorite right now?
It's one of my favorite. Yeah, I listen. It comes out every Friday, and I always listen to it like Saturday morning. But do
you find that a lot because you're listening to a lot of tech shows that you're just getting the same news over and over and over again?
Yeah, sometimes. But because they're different people giving their perspective, I don't mind it.
Okay.
It's like, if you watch the news, the regular news, you're going to get different people's perspective or get different details on it from this place and that place, and you piece the whole story together. Getting, especially with tech where everyone has an opinion on something, I like getting this. But this is Current Geek is not tech. It's more, if you like Beer with Geeks, you'll like Current Geek a little bit more because it's more of that sort of like, here's what James Cameron's saying about Avatar, and here's what George Lucas said about he didn't like The Force Awakens, and it's more of that kind of stuff. It's nerd culture, nerd media, and that kind of stuff. Oh, I watched all of Master of None.
Got it.
So pop culture. Current Geek, and the pop quiz is always really fun because Tom always keeps score. Scott asks the questions to the guests, and Tom keeps score, and he has this weird, bizarre scoring mechanism where he's like, "Oh, you answered really fast. It's a 3-point bonus for speed," and then the person will be like, "Oh, I know this one. It's this. Oh, you lose a point for being too confident." Like it's just like funny. Like no reason. It's funny.
It's like whose lines anyway?
Yeah,
points don't matter. Yeah.
The points are just weird. So that's fun.
The points are just weird.
The points are just weird. I think maybe the one I look forward to the most every Friday, I'm like refreshing my feeds looking for Rebel Force Radio.
Oh yeah, I don't listen to the regular show.
The main show anymore.
I don't. Every so often I do, but normally I'm catching up on other things that I'd rather listen to, and because it's every news every week, I'm like, well, I'm not going to go back and listen to news.
Sure. From
12 weeks ago.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they are the number one. They're like the Star Wars podcast. The Star Wars podcast. Like, if you're looking for a Star Wars weekly, like week to week podcast for like
huge
news
network.
and
Shot Glass Digital is huge.
Yeah. They've kind of moved away from calling it that, and they've kind of gone more just like it's Rebel Force Radio now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's they kind of moved away from it. I don't know.
That's their brand, Rebel Force. Radio is the brand.
I think they've embraced that more. But they it's a weekly. They talk about the headlines. They talk about whatever's happening in Star Wars culture. They're
well connected to.
They are
Star Wars.
They have great connections. They always have great interviews with people of all varying levels. Like it'll be Dave Filoni who runs Star Wars Rebels, who's like the the executive producer or the showrunner, or it'll be like the person who was Maz Kanata, like
her body double,
whenever it wasn't Lupita Nyong'o, or it'll be this Star Wars artist who drew these top trading cards or whatever. Like it'll be people of all different.
It'll be
all the voices of all the different.
It'll be the voice of Darth Maul and the Emperor.
Sure.
Sam Witwer.
Sam Witwer.
Yeah. Their commentaries actually
they've done
are
commentary
best. If you don't know what to try first, because there's so much, I would just go back and listen to their
that's a good
one. Just choose a commentary. I would start with A New Hope because they kind of build on different things. But once Sam Witwer gets there, man, does he say good stuff.
Does Sam start? He does all the prequels with them, or does he do?
He does not do A New Hope with them, I don't think.
Yeah,
I think he might do
maybe Empire. I don't remember, but yeah, they've been doing it for over a couple of years. They spaced them out, and they're all in the
Either
feed
way,
there.
they're all real good.
Look in their archives; you'll find them pretty easily. I think there's a search on their site too. But Rebel Force Radio has done a great job with that. But also, what I like, and I know what you really like, is they have an offshoot show. It's in the same feed.
This is my favorite.
It's called Star Wars Oxygen. It's been said, some of their contributor co-hosts have said that the oxygen of the Star Wars universe is John Williams' music.
Right.
And so they have a whole show where David W. Collins, who has worked at LucasArts and he's done music for
he did music for the Force Unleashed games.
Force Unleashed games.
Yeah. He works for Sony now, I think.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
yes,
I think he
that
works.
sounds
Yeah,
right.
I think he works for Sony now. But he does this huge analysis of the and he himself is an excellent musician, and so it's not just
and quite a music scholar.
Yes, it's not just hey, I
like the bit that goes da 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 da.
Yeah, exactly. There's something for everybody to appreciate, whether you know music or don't. He does an excellent job at bringing you into the conversation if you know nothing about music. But at the same time, if you know music, you do appreciate him sometimes on a different level.
Like that much more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe because even the way, because knowing the work that he puts into this is pretty outstanding.
Yeah. You know that college professor you had who was really good at bringing things down to a very understandable, relatable level.
Yeah.
Like he could make, Socrates or Shakespeare very easy to understand suddenly.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow, this guy's really good at repackaging it in a way that I can understand. That's what David Collins does.
Yeah.
With okay, did you know that, the first notes of the Star Wars theme, dun, 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 right? The same notes are in Luke and Leia's theme in the Empire, Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Right? Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Same notes at the beginning of that theme, things like that. He'll point out
Rey's theme and Kylo Ren's theme are the inverses of one another,
and they fit into each other.
They fit into each other, all that stuff the stuff that you might not think, you might have walked away from Force Awakens going, that soundtrack, it wasn't John Williams' best. You go listen to those Star Wars Oxygen soundtrack, and then you come back and be like, that might have been the greatest Star Wars soundtrack.
And I was like, it wasn't the most John Williams-iest of soundtracks.
Yeah.
And then I listened to his talk he's done 2 episodes on it so far, with more to come. And they're fantastic. And that's what I like about them. They're maybe 45 minutes to an hour usually.
It's about an hour,
yeah. And he does one a month or one every couple of weeks, and he'll spend 3-4 episodes on each movie and just blow my mind. There's always a moment in every episode. I'm like, oh, that's the moment of this episode where he pointed out that these two things were connected, or it's the same notes in a different order or whatever.
He calls to mind bits of. He'll call to mind. Pieces of instrumentations that you might not even hear because it's not part you're just listening to the main melody, but you don't hear the flutes doing this and this and this and this, but that relates to this, and it's really good. It really lets you appreciate everything on a grander level.
Right.
Lets you appreciate the work that John Williams puts into what he does. Instead of I created a nice tune. Yeah, it's way more than that.
In particular, when you see something in the prequels that's echoing something in the original trilogy or something like that, it's oh my god, these were 30 years apart, and he was thinking about oh, you know what, these characters are similar, I'm going to use the same instrument, similar instrumentation, similar melody, or I'm going to take this theme and break it up into pieces. And Anakin's theme from episode 1 is actually the Imperial March deconstructed and put back together again.
Right, yeah. It's just
some cool stuff there.
It's really cool stuff.
So that's another show that I really enjoy.
And if you actually really like the way that Frank delivers sentences to you in dulcet tones, you'll really like David W. Collins, because
you've said this before.
Yeah, I know. Well, you hear yourself. You don't. It's your inner ear. It's different.
Yeah.
But the way that David W. Collins reacts to things that are said and his responses to some things and the way he and Frank would be best friends or worst enemies depending on the kind of people that they are. I think he would be friends too. It's just a very gracious way of speaking.
Well, thank you. That's a compliment. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What are some of the shows you like?
There are a couple others that I subscribe to. I am a big fan of Fat Man on Batman by Kevin
me
Smith.
too, yeah.
And now by Mark Bernardin as well. They've changed the format
Yeah, I
quite
like
suddenly. But it started as an interview show where he was interviewing people that were part of the Batman universe in some way. And now it's really more of a here's the geek news from Mark and Kevin.
Yeah.
I listen more because I like Kevin Smith and Mark Bernardin. Like the news that they share, I've gotten already. It's a YouTube channel now, actually.
Yes,
they come out 3 times a week, and the show is those episodes just strung together. Now, so the format,
except when they do have an interview.
He just interviewed Brandon Routh for Legends of Tomorrow, in which he worked with Zach and Miri.
Right.
Yeah, it's really, the interviews are really good.
They are.
Kevin Smith is an excellent interviewer because he knows how to get people comfortable enough to just share their story, and then just kind of roll with it. There's some really great interviews. I think the Neil Adams interviews might be some of the best.
Those are
there.
gold.
They're gold because Neil Adams is a storyteller. He will just sit there and tell you this grand story. I think it's like 2 or 3 episodes worth.
I think it might be 3.
Yeah. It's so good, and they're about 2 hours apiece. There's a lot of.
It was
substance
It was
there.
a long conversation that they just had in Kevin's house.
His little studio in his house. But I mean, Paul Dini shows up a couple of times.
That was a good one too. The Denny O'Neil one was really good, I thought too.
The Denny O'Neil one is good. There's a whole bunch, and now I can't even remember.
Mark Hamill.
Oh yeah, I forgot Mark Hamill.
That was an early one too.
Yeah, that was early. That was the second one, actually.
Okay.
That was also 2-parter. That one's really good.
Yeah.
Bruce Timm is on there.
Yes, of course.
Kevin Conroy shows up a couple times. Adam West, there's an episode. He does some nice commentary tracks. Diedrich Baker, who voiced Batman in Batman Brave and the Bold. Jeff Johns, the Grant Morrison episodes.
Oh, the Grant Morrison
are tremendous. What a man to listen to.
Talk about storytellers, right?
Yeah, it's really good. I do miss that format a little bit.
Yeah.
I miss listening to those people, though I do like hearing, because Mark Bernardin's got some really nice things to say.
Yeah, he does. It's hard to sustain that. If you're like, I'm only going to interview Batman people every week or a couple times a month.
There's
whatever.
only so many people he's going to talk to before he's going to be like, well, I can reach out to Jack Nicholson.
Yeah,
but I don't think that's going to work.
I think Tim Burton might be a corpse by now. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
though.
right.
So it's hard to do that. So I kind of like what he's.
I like what it's
been
becoming,
doing.
The utility belt.
Utility belt. Right.
Yeah,
and in between, every once in a while, when he can, he pulls people in that are.
Yeah, right. He interviewed Brandon Routh for Legends Tomorrow, which was a really good interview.
Yeah.
It was nice to hear. And it's always that comfortable. Where do they come from? It's not just tell me only about this one thing.
No, it's like telling me your life story.
I like interviews that tell me the whole story. The Empire podcast is like that. A lot of those interviews are tell me the whole story. We're having a nice conversation. It's the Chris Hardwick style. It's that the Nerdist.
That's exactly what I was gonna. I don't want to interrupt you, but it is.
Yeah, and who knows which one came first?
Sure.
And so it doesn't really the Mark Maron style. Even they're just.
Yep.
It's these guys that just bring somebody in and let's just have a chat, and it diffuses a lot of tension and breaks down a lot of walls right from the beginning. So it just makes for a good conversation, good laughs.
Yeah.
I don't listen to all of the Nerdist episodes, all of Chris Hardwick's episodes. That's
people that I recognize.
I pick and choose. Some.
I do it with Nerdist. I do it with Mark Maron.
Right.
WTF.
With Empire, I don't pick and choose because I teach film, and so it's also in some ways it's important to me to hear these things and are in all the stuff, and so. But I don't. If Chris Hardwick is interviewing, rapper so and so, it doesn't matter to me. Same with now. Here's the thing with Alec Baldwin.
Here's the thing is really good too. Those I pick and choose also.
Yeah,
but the good ones are really good. Like the ones are people that I've that I like.
Those are quite good.
I love his Billy Joel interview.
That one's great.
That one was so good, and he's interviewing him at the side of a piano. So Billy is just breaks into certain songs, here and there, just to interject. Everybody talking about, oh yeah, Say Goodbye to Hollywood. Yeah, I wrote that one when I was leaving Hollywood and moving back to New York, and he plays a little bit of it. Yeah, this lyric was inspired by this and that, and it was really great. I really enjoyed it. It came out last year, I think, 2015, and I listened to it, and then I listened to it again right before I saw Billy Joel live. So it was a cool little refresher. seeing him. Yeah. That's Alec Baldwin's really,
it's
really
real good.
Yeah, here's the thing.
Yeah, before we wrap, let's say I two more. Let's just do really
okay.
briefly.
Rapid fire,
just two apiece.
Okay.
One is Rachel Miles explain the X-Men, which I really enjoy. Which these two comic enthusiasts. One of them works in comics. Rachel works in comics, but they're a married couple that every week they explain X-Men continuity, starting from issue 1, and they kind of break up in order and go through story arcs, and they're very rapid paced, very, very quick to go through, very quick. And it even if you've never ever read those X-Men comics, you can really appreciate the way that they deliver, because they call out a lot of the absurdity, but they have a great love and affinity for X-Men, and so that one's good. That one sometimes I listen to in bursts. I kind of go through big arcs. I like that one. The other one I just want to point out is, now I lost the name of it, but I'm going to get it back in a second. Batman the Animated Podcast.
Oh yeah, you've mentioned this to me.
Yeah. Which this guy named Justin Michael, who works, he works in Hollywood, works in film and television and animation, and he's a stand-up comedian, all that stuff. Has a great love for Batman the Animated Series from Bruce Timm.
Nice.
And he sits down every other week. It's a bi-weekly podcast, which is nice because all these other ones are basically weekly podcasts.
Yeah.
So it's nice that one takes its time. And he interviews two people. Normally it's a Batman fan. Sometimes it's like his friend. Sometimes actually he interviewed Echo Kellum, who plays Curtis Holt on Arrow.
Okay, yeah.
That was a great one, actually. He was really fun to listen to. And they're friends, and so they interviewed, and then he grabbed somebody who worked on Batman the Animated Series. And so he's had Kevin Conroy's been on, and Paul Dini's been on.
Awesome.
What's her name? Oh, geez.
Andrea Romano. Thank you. And a lot of times he pulls people, like storyboard artists or concept artists or the musicians or all these other pieces that you don't. It's not just quite like, here's the voice actor. You get a huge perspective on a bunch of different things. It's really interesting. Cool. And he does these weird, like, little kooky, like, comic shows in between where, like, the microphone comes alive and it's like these tiny little weird bits in between. Some people hate them, and but I love them. I think they're super corny and it's ridiculous, but I love it because it's like nothing else I listen to. My last one, I just want to give a special shout out to the Suicide Squad cast. Of course,
yeah,
our buddies,
yeah, our friends Scott and Tim. I listen every week. They're very enthusiastic. It's a lot like listening to us sometimes. They talk about they pull stuff, news about DC that I don't know where it came from, and I check the news. I'm like, I check several times a day for the, like, oh, I've got a second, I'll check the, blah blah blah. But they pull stuff that I've never even seen. It's pretty remarkable sometimes, and they have some really nice, good perspectives. They're very enthusiastic.
They are, yeah. They know their stuff when it comes to DC,
and they know their stuff, which is always important. Yeah. I don't like podcasts where they're like, oh, we're going to talk about this, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? I realized that I thought Batman was a Marvel character. Like, get out of here. Yeah, exactly. Nonsense.
Yeah, no, Scott and Tim, good buddies of ours, and they put on a really good show. So Suicide Squad cast for sure. Good for DC fans, absolutely.
Indeed.
My two would be, so first of all, there's one called Startup. It is about startup companies, like small, startup companies, tech company stuff. What's really cool is they do alternating seasons. So the first season was about the company that makes the podcast itself and how they got started. It's not just like they interview the people who run the company, sure, but they also like have microphones running in the rooms and they're having meetings and making decisions.
That's cool.
And like talking to investors and stuff. And so you get to learn like how does a company get started. So the first season was about the company itself, like the podcast company itself. The second season was on a different company, and then they did like a mini season again on the company itself. And now they're about to do another season on a third party company. Cool. So that's really cool. Very smart people who used to be at NPR now do this. And then another one that I really like. Is Dan Carlin's Hardcore History. This guy is a huge history nerd.
I know this one.
Yeah, and he does these. They're long. He does these long form, like I'm talking 3-hour episodes, and he'll do like 5 of them. I think he just did 5 or 6 on World War I, each 2 to 3 hours long, and immensely informative. And if you like history, you like learning. If you're the kind of person who likes to watch Jeopardy because you learn stuff, Like, this is for that kind of person. So I highly recommend, like, if you really enjoy, he's so smart and adds so much color and makes these people who are long dead come to life again by describing what they were like and reading quotes and everything. It's really, really, really cool. It's just one guy talking and making it not boring somehow for 15 hours.
Yeah.
So
indeed. So, but until next time, you can also reach us on Supergirl TV Talk.
That's right.
Yeah, you can.
We do that.
You can find us. You can also find us on Legends TV Talk.
We also do that.
Yep. Our friends over at Flash TV Talk and Arrow TV Talk and all the TV talks.
All the TV talks and also Starkville podcasts.
Yeah. And so there's so many things, but we're out of time. And so we say find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Gmail at Beer with Geeks. You'll find us. You know how these things work because you're listening to a podcast, so you know how Twitter, Facebook, and Gmail work.
If you found us, tweet us. Say hi at Beer with Geeks.
Hi, yes. Please leave us please leave us a review on the iTunes and all such things.
Yes, that's right.
And the Satchels and the Overcast. But until next time, I say to you, cheers.